You put out a bird feeder. You fill it every morning. You watch birds come and go, and you feel good about what you're doing for them. And here's the truth. Nobody in this space wants to say out loud, what you're doing almost doesn't matter. Not because you're doing it wrong, not because the birds don't appreciate it, but because the actual system that feeds wild birds, the system that has been feeding billions of them every single day for millions of years, has almost nothing to do with you. And that system is so vast, so precisely engineered, and so quietly extraordinary that your feeder, compared to it, is like bringing a single sandwich to feed a stadium. But here's the other truth. Welcome to Bird's Mind Theory, the one that actually should alarm you. That system is breaking, right now, faster than most people realize. And the reason it's breaking has nothing to do with whether you remembered to fill your feeder this morning. Today we are going into how the real feeding machine works, the one that moves billions of birds every single day without a single human involved. And then we're going to talk about what's happening to it. Because once you understand what's actually at stake, you will never look at your yard the same way again. Let's start with a number that puts everything in perspective. North America alone is home to roughly 7.5 billion land birds. Every single one of them needs to eat every single day. Small songbirds, the chickadees, the warblers, the finches you see at your feeder, need to consume somewhere between 50 and 100% of their body weight in food daily just to keep their metabolism running. A black-capped chickadee weighs 11 grams. It needs to eat roughly 10 grams of food per day. In winter, when overnight temperatures drop and the bird needs to survive until morning, that number climbs even higher. A chickadee may need to gain 10% of its body weight in fat reserves every single afternoon just to make it through one cold night. If it doesn't gain enough, it doesn't make it to morning. There is no margin. There is no backup. So the question is not whether birds are being fed. Obviously they are. There are 7.5 billion of them. The question is how. And the answer, for the overwhelming majority of wild birds, has almost nothing to do with humans, with feeders, with the 50-pound bag of sunflower seeds you ordered online. The answer is a system so old, so perfectly calibrated, and so relentlessly efficient that it runs night and day without pause. And most people walk past it every morning without seeing it at all. The primary food source for most North American birds is not seeds. It is not the sweat you hang from your fence. It is not anything you can buy in a store. It is insects. Research published in the journal Ornithology found that during breeding season, roughly 96% of terrestrial bird species in North America feed insects to their young. Even dedicated seed eaters, cardinals, sparrows, goldfinches, switch almost entirely to insects when they're raising chicks, because insects provide the protein and fat that growing birds need at a level that seeds simply cannot match. And the volume of insects consumed is almost impossible to comprehend. Research estimated that birds worldwide consume somewhere between 400 and 500 million tons of insects every single year. In North American forests alone, birds consume enough insects to prevent the kinds of pest outbreaks that would otherwise devastate entire tree populations. Now here's the part that matters. Where are all these insects? They are everywhere you're not looking. They're in the leaf litter on your lawn. They're under the bark of every tree in your neighborhood. They're inside decaying wood, in the soil, on the undersides of leaves, emerging from ponds, hatching from streams. A single mature oak tree can support over 500 species of caterpillars, a single oak. And those caterpillars are the food that warblers, vireos, chickadees, and dozens of other species depend on to raise their young. A warbler moving through the canopy is not randomly hopping from branch to branch. It is systematically hunting. It checks every leaf, every twig, every crevice. It may find and consume hundreds of individual insects in one day, and not a single one of them came from a human. But insects are seasonal. In winter, insect availability in northern climates drops dramatically. So what feeds the birds when insects disappear? Seeds and berries, but not the ones in your feeder. Native plants have spent millions of years evolving specifically to be eaten by birds at exactly the right moment. Sunflowers, coneflowers, goldenrod, native grasses, they produce seed heads in late summer and early fall that persist through winter, sitting on the plant, available for birds across months of cold weather. A single mature native sunflower head can hold over 1,000 seeds. A field of native grasses produces millions of seeds per acre. Then there are berries. Native dogwoods, viburnums, hollies, junipers, sumacs. These plants produce berries that are deliberately timed to bird migration and overwintering needs. They are high in fat. They are exactly what a bird on a long journey needs. A cedar waxwing can eat hundreds of berries in a single day. A flock can strip a berry-laden tree in hours. And this is not a coincidence. These plants evolved to be stripped. The bird eats the berry, flies miles away, and deposits the seeds somewhere new in its droppings. The bird gets food. The plant gets its seeds dispersed across a landscape. It's a partnership so old and so precise that neither the plant nor the bird could fully function without the other. This is the second layer of the feeding machine, and it has been running without human involvement since long before humans existed. Here's where the feeding machine reveals something genuinely extraordinary about the birds inside it. Many birds don't just find food, they plan ahead. They store food. They hide it across hundreds or even thousands of locations and come back for it later. And the memory system they use to do this is one of the most remarkable things in the animal kingdom. Black-capped chickadees can cache tens of thousands of individual food items across a single season. Seeds hidden under bark, in crevices, tucked under leaves, each one at a separate location. And researchers at Columbia University discovered that the chickadee's brain creates something extraordinary for each cache, a unique pattern of neural activity, like a biological barcode, that fires only for that specific hiding location. Each cache gets its own code, and when the bird returns, days later, sometimes weeks, that barcode reactivates precisely, guiding the bird back to the exact spot. The chickadee's hippocampus, the brain region responsible for memory, actually grows physically larger every autumn, adding new brain cells specifically to handle the increased memory load of caching season. Then in spring, when insects return and caching is no longer needed, it shrinks back. The brain physically reshapes itself around the seasons. This is not instinct operating blindly. This is active, flexible, episodic memory, the same type of memory humans use to remember specific events in our lives. The chickadee remembers where it hid each seed the same way you remember where you left your keys, except it does this for thousands of locations simultaneously. This level of cognitive sophistication exists because the feeding machine demands it. Birds that couldn't do this didn't survive. The ones that could passed it on. So where does the feeder in your yard actually fit into all of this? Research on feeder contributions to wild bird diets consistently shows the same uncomfortable finding. For most birds, most of the time, feeders provide a relatively small percentage of total daily food intake. Studies suggest that for many species, feeders contribute less than 25% of what they eat. For some species, it's closer to 10%. The birds visit your feeder because it's an easy, concentrated source of calories that reduces the energy cost of foraging. It's a shortcut, not a lifeline. If your feeder disappeared tomorrow, the vast majority of birds in your yard would return to what they were already spending most of their time doing: hunting insects, finding seeds, locating cached food, and they would be fine. There is one important exception. During extreme weather events, heavy snow, ice storms, prolonged deep cold, natural food becomes temporarily inaccessible. During those windows, feeders become significantly more important. Birds that have access to a feeder during a severe cold snap survive at measurably higher rates than those without one. So your feeder matters. It's just not doing what you think it's doing the other 350 days of the year. It is a supplement, not a system. Now for the part that changes everything. Since 1970, North America has lost nearly 3 billion birds. That is not a rounding error. That is a 29% reduction in the total bird population of the continent, gone in roughly half a century. Research published in the journal Science confirmed the scope of it. And a follow-up study in 2026 found the losses are accelerating, not slowing down. The single biggest factor driving those losses is not a lack of feeders. It is the destruction of the feeding machine itself. Habitat loss has eliminated the insects, the native plants, the seeds, and the berries that the system depends on. Pesticides, particularly neonicotinoids widely used in agriculture, have decimated insect populations at a scale that directly starves birds that depend on insects to raise their young. Researchers found that when migratory birds eat seeds treated with certain pesticides, they lose weight during migration, delay their departure, and arrive at breeding grounds in weakened condition. And the replacement of native plants with non-native ornamental landscaping has quietly dismantled the plant partnership that took millions of years to build. Research by Dr. Doug Tallamy at the University of Delaware found that a native oak supports over 500 caterpillar species. A non-native ornamental tree, the kind planted in millions of suburban yards across North America, supports fewer than 5. When you replace native trees with ornamental ones, you have eliminated 99% of the insect food base that the birds in that area depend on. Your feeder sits in the middle of this. It attracts birds to a yard, But if that yard has no insects, no native berries, no seeds from native plants, the birds arrive, eat quickly, and leave. The feeder draws them in. The landscape offers them nothing else. So here is what this all means. The system that feeds billions of birds every day is not your feeder. It is the insects in the soil, the caterpillars in the trees, the seeds on the native plants, the berries on the shrubs, the caches hidden under bark in 1,000 places you will never find. It is a machine built over millions of years, running on partnerships between plants and birds, so old they predate mammals. It is staggeringly complex, breathtakingly efficient, and it asks nothing of you to run, except this. Stop dismantling it. Stop replacing native plants with ornamentals that feed nothing. Stop using pesticides that eliminate the insects that make the whole system work. Stop treating your yard as decoration and start understanding it as habitat, because the birds don't need it to look beautiful. They need it to be alive. Fill your feeder. That matters, especially in winter, especially in extreme weather. But if you want to genuinely help the birds in your yard, plant one native tree. Let one corner of your lawn grow wild. Put in a native shrub that produces berries, because every native plant you add is a piece of the real feeding machine that 3 billion lost birds depended on before it started breaking. The machine can still be rebuilt, but it is not rebuilt with sunflower seeds. It is rebuilt with understanding what birds actually need and having the courage to give it to them. If this changed how you see your yard and your feeder, subscribe right now, because every week on this channel we go this deep into what birds actually need and what science actually says. Drop a comment below. Do you have native plants in your yard? Have you noticed more birds since planting them? I read every single comment. And share this with someone who puts out a feeder, because this is the video they actually needed to see.